All right, and 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome back to another edition of A Humanistic Perspective. Today, I am so fortunate to be joined with Claudia Monacelli. Claudia, thank you for joining me today. Folks, we have an amazing episode for you. Claudia is a linguist interpreter. She's a median. She's a YouTuber. She's a professor. There's so much to explore here. Claudia, thank you for joining me today.
You know, you said I'm a linguist. With the way you pronounced my name, boy, you have a future.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, everyone keeps saying that to me. They're like, wow, you have a very good voice for radio. I was like, oh, thank you. So I love to
Thanks
start
for
the show.
having me. Thanks for having me here.
Of course, yes. So I want to start the show by going back to your childhood. I want to sort of explore your life. Let's get to know you and understand you. I know you are not the first generation median interpreter in the family. I would
Right.
love to explore that dynamic in your childhood. So if we could, where were you raised? What was life like during your younger years? Let's start there.
Okay. So I literally came off the boat.
Wow.
My parents decided to immigrate to the United States because my father was a prisoner of war. World War II,
Wow.
taken by the English, went to India, 8 years, the whole bit.
Sure.
And when he finally escaped, came back, got my mom, got married, had a kid, my older sister. And then when I was born, they decided to move to the United States. His father was there. And so I was 6 months old, got on the boat, went to Ellis Island, and my mom was sick the entire time. And he had me, he was changing. They didn't have diapers there. So you could imagine. And plus my older sister was 4. And the whole time she was there, when she got there, she found out she was pregnant, and he said, it wasn't me. So that's the beginning. So
Wow.
literally when we grew up, we were growing up. So I didn't speak yet Italian, but of course they were talking Italian to us, and us sisters were speaking English, and then, speaking to them in English. And so this went on and on and on. And we grew up in the city, really hardcore city, Paterson, New Jersey. That movie Paterson with Adam Driver.
Sure.
Is that? Yeah, with Paterson. Yeah, it's with Adam Driver. And it was a really, really industrial city. I grew up in front of the factories and
Wow.
the falls. I could remember eating meatball sandwiches against the house, looking up between the factories, these fireworks, gorgeous.
Wow.
And so that was, the beginning, until we hit the suburbs, and they were supposed to run a highway where we lived, and they invited us to leave. And so we went to, the next town over, from Totowa, Wayne area, northern New Jersey. And so we hit the suburbs, and the suburbs, didn't have a beat like Paterson had. I mean, I could remember I was 5 years old with a nickel in my pocket, and I went to Woolworths to get an ice cream all by myself, walked 7 blocks. I couldn't do that in Totowa, Please don't all those Totowa fans out there. So for me, the suburbs were really very illuminating, because, all of a sudden there was a school, and there was this rah high school, and friends, and the social life. I was, most popular in 8th grade with my boyfriend, and, all of these things, all of these social things. And when we got to high school, it was sort of a tri-city area, and we get to the high school, and you get into, the football team and the basketball team. And I was a head baton twirler and a cheerleader for certain seasons, the whole.
Now, at this time, can you smoke cigarettes in school? Are kids smoking cigarettes in school? Is this like greasers and grease?
It's funny that you say that, because when I was thinking this morning about this episode, I thought to myself, I wonder if I'm going to tell him when I was smoking menthol cigarettes with Nina and Kathy behind the balloon factory.
See, yeah, no, I vividly remember, like, my grandmother and that telling me that her and her girls' club, they did the same thing. They would all go out with the menthol cigarettes too.
Yeah, why menthol? I don't know.
Maybe just marketing. Maybe it was like, ooh, it feels
right,
good.
cool. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. was a girls, yeah, like you said, the girls club.
Mm.
Funny. Well, part of the girls club, I have to say, and you can close one ear, all through the last 3 years. Well, you could call it middle school, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8th grade.
Yeah.
Our girls club were exchanging boyfriends. I went out with Rob, and then she went out with Rob, and how was the night? So that was very common.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
That's
it is
such a
funny.
youngins.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, same.
I could remember spin the bottle in my parents' basement,
Mm.
really funny.
So what was your
And
first experience during your childhood with, I guess, median work or your parents? I
okay,
know you said
okay.
your mother
When I said
read
the third
cards.
generation, well, I started way back when in the boat and all of that, because I had to
Mm,
bring in the fact my father had been a prisoner of war, and
sure.
I grew up with stories of seances that they used to have
Mm.
with other prisoners, and he would always, I was the one who listened most, so he would always say, so the story kept repeating itself. I swear to you, Claudia, that table raised. Our hands were on the table and it raised. And
Wow.
so you hear it once, you hear it twice, and I'm thinking, should I believe this stuff? Could I believe it? Can I believe it?
Right.
And so that he had it from one of his from his mom. His is funny. His mom was a twin, and his father was a twin, and they both married twins. So they were the two sisters
Wow.
and the two brothers. Yeah, well, and so that this seance business started then, but he was in the stories that he used to tell us. But my experience with spirits
Mm.
literally started in the Catholic Church, and I have to say that before I started, I guess 6 years old, you start in first grade. I can't remember, but it was way before. It was 4, 5, 6th grade when we would go to church, and I could remember holding my father's hand, and I just looked up, and you know how there are frescoes in the church.
Mm.
All of a sudden, they came out of the fresco, out of the wall, out of the vaults, and started
Wow.
dancing with each other and singing, and it looked like they were jumping through each other,
Mm.
fornicating literally.
Wow.
And that's the beginning. That was the first vision that I ever had, and my dad
What
was waking. What Claudia? I was saying to me.
what was what was your perception of it psychologically after that experience? Were you frightened during it? Were you
Not at all, because
confused or
I was too young to be frightened.
Mm.
And like I said, it made me think of fornicating. And of course, at 4 years old, you don't think of that, but I knew there was communion there. There was movement. And of course, they were spirits.
Wow.
What happened after that was very, very particular, because we lived in, like I said, Patterson, and we were
Yep.
close to this church, St. Michael's Church. And I would go in the afternoons. And I have to say, today, I'm not a practicing Catholic. I have left it behind, but
Sure.
I have a lot of experiences in that linked to that church. And I would sit in one of the pews, and I would just sit there, because it was a time when nobody came and everything was quiet. And I liked that. I liked to see that. And what would happen was I would look at the altar, and what I kept seeing was a scene, not like a nativity scene, but people walking across from the left to the right, talking, arguing, raising their hands, moving, as if I were watching a puppet show.
Mm.
And it was really interesting, because it didn't scare me, but because I was too young to be scared, I think. What I did was then go home and start writing a line, a poem, saying in Italian, actually, it was in Italian.
Wow.
They'd entered, they'd bowed, and they would leave. And that was stretching the interpretation. And then I started writing poetry that was, I think it was form poetry, it's called, where if you're writing about a tree, it takes the position of a tree, the form of a tree, and things like that.
Yes, I
But
understand what you're saying.
the odd things that happened after that was when I fainted in church, when this type of thing was going on, and I would just boo 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 blank out. And at the time, the first time it happened, there was an older woman next to me. And the second time it happened, there was a church full of people. And it happened even when I was older, in my college years, that I would be concentrating on something and I just lose my senses. And then I really realized early on that the state that you perceive these things is an altered state. Okay, it is an altered state, but you have to control that altered state. You just can't go fainting everywhere, right? And if you're going to use it, you have to make it functional to learning, because for me, learning is everything. I need to learn what I'm doing so I can do what I'm doing,
Right.
or that I can know what I'm doing. Because if you know what you're doing, you can do whatever you want. This is something I firmly believe in. And so it started slowly, our first Ouija board. And I have a really funny story there.
Oh, go into it. Let's hear
Us
that.
3 girls, 3 sisters. Okay. The one with that was pregnant on the boat, me and my older sister. And we got this first Hasbro toys, Ouija board on the steps of our house. It was a Hasbro.
Commercial Ouija boards.
Yes, exactly. And we were sitting and we were asking stupid questions, who are going, because my older sister was sort of not chubby, but she was forming. She was developing.
Yeah.
And I was not. And then my younger sister was a toothpick. So we were asking the Ouija board, okay, tell us who are going to have the largest tits. We said tits. We didn't say breasts. We said tits. And it went right to Anna. And we were rolling on the floor. We were rolling on the floor.
Like it actually moved itself.
Well, yeah, of course. It went to spell Anna. And we were laughing like crazy because she was so skinny. We laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. I swear to you, she is the most formidable woman of the 3. She's and often we'll tell each other, don't you remember on the steps?
Sure. Now, when you were having these experiences, like passing out in the church and that, were you telling your parents, your father in that? Because you said you understood about the seances, about the culture, and then you were starting to write. Were you going, hey, Dad,
No,
I think I'm
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Neither to my mother, neither to my father, who had spoken to me about the occult. And my mother, I had no clue of. All I knew was that my mother was playing solitaire all the time. When she passed, there were over 100 deck of cards hidden in all nooks and crannies of the house.
Wow.
And we were shocked, and we understood that because you just didn't talk about that kind of thing. She couldn't have been playing solitaire, all that. It's something that was not spoken of. So that's how it started. And the way that it developed is that I realized that, like you said, you keep asking me about being frightful. Weren't you afraid? No, I have to say I was never afraid, never really afraid, not even when once, it was about 7 years ago. It was one of the coldest winters on the East Coast. I was there for February in New Jersey, and it was like 20 degrees below zero. It was really, really cold. And I was in the lower parts of the house, and I kept feeling this swishing past me. And I thought, oh my God, there can't be any windows open, and I knew that there was a poltergeist there, and it still didn't get to me. I just got rid of it, but it does, what does affect me is when I channel with clients and I offer, of course, the interpretation, what is communicated to them. And it's not things that I could know about them. I could not know the information I'm giving them, right? When they just fall apart and cry, they always used to say that, and saying that is, I felt like I was talking to them. Then sometimes I get the hair on my skin stands on end a little bit, because it's surprising more than anything. It's not really fear. Yeah.
Right. Is there a part of your life that maybe has become you become desensitized to because you are a medium and you can see and live with spirits. Is there a part of that experience that someone who maybe doesn't have that experience could learn or pick up? For example, like someone with perfect pitch, they go their whole life understanding and hearing pitches, and someone who doesn't have that would have no recognition, but their whole experience is desensitized to understanding pitches perfectly. Do you have something like that?
When you talk about desensitizing, and I'm thinking I could never be desensitized. I am a really hot-headed Italian. I mean, everybody tells me that. I'm really hot-headed. I flare up. In terms of other people, because a lot of people come to me, they want to be trained. They want me to mentor them, and there is a process, of course. And I really do feel that you can learn anything.
Wow. So anyone can become a medium?
I believe that anyone can learn to do just about anything. However, there is the maxim, and I truly believe this, that if you cannot imagine it, you cannot do it. Okay? For example, if I say to my friend, come on, you're going to start learning how to dance salsa. No, I can't. I can't. Well, what about play the piano? No, I can't. And I said, why? And he said, well, because I can't even imagine it. I can't even think that I could possibly do that. It's a little tricky. It's like saying, okay, Chad, I know that you could be a doctor. You would be a great surgeon because I know that you have the ability to understand how incision is done, how it goes around. You can get around certain organs and pull them out without killing anybody in the meantime. And of course, I'd have to know that you were also unfazed by the sight of blood. I surely could be a surgeon if I could imagine it perfectly. But I really do think that there was because I also have my own podcast, and I every now and then, at least one couple a week, I interview guests. And one of the guests said to me, well, do you understand when something is coming to you? Do you feel like do you have a premonition of something that's
like
about
a text
to happen?
notification or something?
Right, a text notification or something. And I thought to myself, I said to her, I have to live, I've got to eat, and I have to go to the supermarket, I've got to pay bills. I can't just keep my feelers out for all this garbage,
Right.
And you have to be able to get information when you want it and not be amenable to downloads anytime the spirits want to throw something your way, and of course, I have a certain perspective. I have a certain way of thinking, and a lot of people don't. I mean, a lot of people think that if you meditate, if you close your eyes, put in a sitting position, put on that incense, and just wait, something's going to happen. And it's not the way that happens to me, because if I'm concentrating, I have to be in silence. That is my meditation. And I'm not going to use any kind of app to meditate, for sure, but it is, I really do feel that people can become healers and mediums. One of my guests asked me about this, and I said, she said, because you just don't learn it anywhere. And I said, no, you're wrong, because there has been until 3 months ago, actually, in Switzerland, a quarterly seminar, I guess you can call it not a seminar, a retreat for mediums who go and exchange their experiences. So they have, not that they're meant to be learning anything, but to know that there are other people like them, because we get a bad name. I mean, people, we really do.
You have a way of
name.
defining a hoax. If you were at this convention, can you tell if someone was playing you rather than actually being?
If I asked a question to someone and they gave me an answer and I didn't believe it, I don't know, because I've never been in that position. But in my case, I would never go to ask someone something like that. And so the idea of accusing someone that it's a hoax is very foreign to me. Right. Why would they want to do that?
Sure, especially if they want to help someone or have a message from someone. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're not going to become wealthy by, I'm not interested in going to the stars, even though Hollywood I have had my share of stars come to me.
Sure.
I'm not interested in, raking up millions to tell people about the the other side, as the metaphor goes. But people need to know that this is possible. People need to know that there are more spirits around us than people, and that it's possible to communicate with them. You feel a vibration, you feel their energy, and you know when something is not right. If I go into a room, what I can say, Chad, is if I ask a question and I feel negative energy from that person, I'm out of there. If you walk into a hall where this is happening, you know that something's off, you're gone,
Right.
because it usually happens. Negative energy comes in these kinds of gatherings, in shamanic groups. That's when the negativity flies, really. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of ask and break down, would you say there are any other philosophies or thought processes? Like, I think back to to a species of Tibetan monks that lived up in the mountains during like the freezing periods when they had no access to food for months and months and months, and they would just meditate to survive. Are they accessing a similar mental space that you are from a neurological perspective? Do you think, or do you know?
I believe so, because it is a cultural difference. They come from a culture that I don't come. I do practice intermittent fasting on a regular basis, but to go and fast because I needed to access information, for me, is ridiculous. In my culture, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't need to do that. However, I can't do certain things on a full stomach, for example. That kind of information, yes. But there are practices. Before I go into a channeling session on my YouTube channel, I do have to cleanse. I do have to recite invocations. I do have to protect myself. And I regularly forget. And I come away with a pain in my knee. And
no way.
Yeah, it happened. Yes. And I have to clear myself. I have to go to my energy woman, and she has to check all of my curses and all of that, implants that I've got onto myself. Yeah, I'm very exposed. We are exposed,
Sure.
whether we like it or not. And with this period, with this time, COVID, post-COVID, it's never post, but the negative energy flies in a way that was unprecedented, is unprecedented, because if our thoughts are very powerful, right?
Yeah.
If I do something on this show, we're live, right? Let's say that we are live, people are listening to us, and I offend you directly, and you didn't expect that. And of course, you're going to start having some negative thoughts about me, I'm sure. And when I leave the show, I'm sure that I'll be able to feel that. And that's going to send negative energy my way. That's how it usually happens. But today, with this context, there are many carriers that use, where negative energy flows through them to you, and it's very hard for us to find the originator, and that's quite difficult. The amount of work that I have done with cleansing and clearing and trying to pinpoint where the energy comes from since COVID started is incredible. It just has really, people have been going crazy, literally. The fear that harbors this type of energy passage.
I wanted to ask, and maybe you don't have to share if you don't want to, but psychotropics, psychedelics, has that played a role? Has that been something you've explored as a medium? Has that played a role in mediumship?
Not at all. Perhaps had I done this at a younger age, maybe I would have, but I've never had, of course, there was a time where I did take I did take drugs.
Sure.
I've dabbled with a few things, but never with the intention of using it as in this sense. All I can remember is I did not like the lingering effect. I did not like the because at that time, at that age, I was never in a position of knowing exactly what it comes anyway. And um, it's funny that you asked this, because there is, I have relatives, right? A lot of relatives that do dabble in things like that, and they get extraordinary insight and wild imaginings,
Mm.
and I listen and listen and listen. And I'm thinking, gee, I wonder how they're going to use that now. What is it going to
Mm.
help them with, And it's fun. It's a release, I think. It's quite interesting that you can go there and come back. But I don't find the need to do that.
Sure.
Unless, I was able to find out, and I'm still analyzing this about aliens. This business about aliens drives me berserk. No, because
It's
it
a valid
happens,
question.
it exists.
Yeah.
It exists. I've channeled the Dr. Mack, who first spoke outwardly about, he's a psychologist who first spoke outwardly because of his clients who were abducted. And I followed him, and he's gone. And then I channeled him live, and it was extraordinary. But then again, I wonder what I could do with that information, because when that develops, perhaps I'll be long gone. People will think I'm crazy if I start talking, and usually people think I'm crazy anyway. But
wait, so are you saying you've been able to channel an alien before?
No, I've channeled Dr. Mack, who has passed, who dealt with clients who were part of his research. Yeah. And he explained to us the phenomena that were reported to him. And there were a few psychologists that worked that way.
What is your perception on aliens? Do you believe like we are an ants, we're not really anything important to them? Do you believe that we're maybe an experiment for them? Do you think we coexist with them? Or what do you think?
I think they're
is
curious. I just think they're curious. Again, I don't see it as a negative force coming, although what I do know, I'm always giving you my perspective, okay?
Of course.
The fallen angels, if we want to use that word, angels, they're fallen spirits, okay? They they were coming to the earth on a mission, but then they got deviated, and we're curious as to, well, what is this thing that we call love? The emotional side to the human experience. And that's basically what they're after, I believe. Yeah, whether they put chips into us or whatever, I have nothing to lose and nothing to hide. But I think the idea here is to understand what these emotions are that people experience in the human body, the soul experiences. This is what I think.
Running on that same theory, being that the aliens could be like a fallen angel of a sort, would a human in that regard then also be a fallen angel, or an angel that has come to live in a body form for a period of time?
Well, now we can't mix mushrooms with peas, can we? We got silk is not blue Levi's, the jeans. We have to get things straight. Well, aliens are not humans, right? We get that. We have that. We got that straight.
Yes.
Humans can be possessed. They can be possessed, but humans are flesh and blood where the soul has incarnated. Okay, so a human is first a soul within a body. Okay.
Yep.
So what the spirit of Claudia is talking to you, right?
Right.
Now, if you ask me as you did, whether a human can be a fallen angel, I have to say no, because they are not, unless they go and they become a something else. If, let's say, they pass the powers that be up there, the councils or whatever the hierarchy is, decide that they are highly developed and they have a certain mission to accomplish, then they take them up. And then what happens after there, I don't know. But if they come back to earth and they incarnate, they will be human. They will never be the angels. We don't have angels here unless, in the form of flesh and blood. That I don't think exists.
Understood.
I'm not sure if I answered.
No, I do. I definitely understand, and the interpretation of where your answer comes from. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
People are going to switch this right off now.
No, I think
these
people are going to be
deals?
extremely fascinated by this conversation. At least I am. I'm enthralled.
What did they do before this? Sure, she doesn't take drugs. What's up?
Oh, so I want to go back to when you're in the suburbs of New Jersey. You finish up there. You can't go to college to become a median, or are you in your head like, I want to start serving clients? Where did you go functionally?
Okay, well, what happened was that I got into interpretation, into language interpretation, and that actually is one step. It was for me in the it was one step in the towards interpreting souls
Understood.
and spirits. So when I did my work as, flying around, interpreting and all of that, then becoming a professor and stuff, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing now, except when I talk about mediumship, and mediumship has a strict, very close link to interpretation, in language interpretation. But I never believed or thought of going to a school for, I don't know, for anything like this. What I did do was become a hypnotherapist, do neuro-linguistic programming, things like that, that had to do with language and had to do with communicating with people and getting them to communicate in a different way. Yes. And just recently I found that there was this place in Switzerland, in Zurich, actually, that had retreats. That closed it. It's finished. They just do this every now and then around the world. And I don't believe, I just said to you, sure, Chad, you can become a medium.
Right.
But then,
but you also have to believe it, right? You have to be able to believe that you can do the activity.
Well, Chad, you have to believe that you're a podcaster, right?
Right. Of course. Yes.
Yeah. No. I mean, of course, we're in a society, and the perfect measure for anyone, a professional or anything that you want to do, is the reactions of people around you. Okay. And how you are accepted, received, and applauded or not applauded. But then, it depends on the context where you go. If you have a high class podcast, upper end, high brow talk, there will be a certain listener, an audience, and they will evaluate what you're doing in a certain way. If you go to a place like YouTube, where there's very low brow talk there, you get, everything. You get people, swearing at you. You get every kind of thing. And so I think the idea here is that you really have to do whatever you want. If you do something that you really want to do, and it gives you pleasure, enjoyment, that's the name of my podcast, Pleasure Seeking. I mean, that is the key, because we are humans. We deserve to feel pleasure, and not just problem solving in our life. Life is difficult enough. And if I prefer paying a bill with a card or going to the bank and talking to the beautiful person behind the bank, that's, my problem. That's the way I like to do it. And because it gives me pleasure, I think you can turn me off.
No, you're totally.
Don't keep. I
wanted to go back to the linguist thing. What about language or grammar really drew you to wanting to become a linguist expert?
Okay. Well, I'm not obsessed, but my interest is in hegemony and power in language. And so when I went for my PhD, it was a PhD that worked, it's social linguistics, okay? That's language used in social contexts. And what I saw between the two languages, because I worked as an interpreter and did interpreting research, was to see how a person spoke, politicians, I work in the political arena, how politicians spoke. And they're not always kind. They're not always gentle, and they can really, make it difficult for someone who's interpreting their words. The issue is do you really want to speak the way they speak? Can you use, did you find the language to say what that person just said? And it's interesting to see how people mediate between saying a curse word straight on and moving away from that and using, say, the third person. The gentleman just said that, and moving yourself away instead of using the first person. That is very interesting to me. That's really, really interesting. It's happened to me numerous times when I've had to accompany people for the State Department going on location, and with a rowdy participant, a rowdy delegate who really wanted to just get to know how much that person earned for a living. And something, as you know, you just don't talk about that. You just in the public, there were 40 people that you can't ask him how much he makes a year, and I was in a position where I didn't want to do it. Then he stood up and asked himself in Italian. And at that point I had to interpret. And I stood up and said, the gentleman to my right would like to know. And I could have went under the table, but I couldn't, it was so embarrassing. But that's my thing. Hegemony in language, how you wield power in language, and how you give concessions, how you cede the floor, how you let another person shine in the limelight, and then when you take it back. It's fascinating. It's so fascinating. And
do you have any world leaders that in which either good or bad you believe were extremely powerful language interpreters themselves, or had an ability to use linguistics to their advantage a lot?
You mean that were good speakers, were powerful speakers? Yeah. Well, there are many. There are just so many. And usually there's a practice of speaking off the cuff. And in the American culture, people never usually read a paper. In other cultures, they do. Now there are teleprompters. And at times, there's this running joke that Biden should learn how to read the teleprompter and not make it sound that he's reading the teleprompter. But usually when people have a crisis, when they're in the heart of a crisis, and it's a press conference, because the press conferences are so exciting, and it's something done on the spur of the moment, and you don't get a speechwriter to give you the answers there, and the questions are fired away. And the key there is to not offend the press, obviously, who are there to do their job, and not compromise your face when a direct threat or a direct statement is made to you. And many people know how to use comedy, often humor, to change or ask the same, reverse the question. And it's fascinating to see. And it doesn't come off as being powerful, but that's what humor does. Humor does give the person power to reverse these situations. It's fascinating. Language is really,
It is.
And you can't get away from language. I mean, language is everything. It is limiting. There are certain things that we can do with language. We cannot use language to express many abstract things. And language is limiting, but it's the only thing we have, I think. But it's well, I'm an Argentine tango dancer, so you don't talk when you do that.
Sure,
that's what I love about it.
Yeah, that's all body language. That's the chemistry of two souls coming together in a room.
I know. And then when somebody starts asking, well, where are you from? I just leave them on the floor. No, I mean, it's come on, it's
savage.
I come to dance. I don't want to hear that. Don't talk. It's terrible.
That's
me
brilliant.
To say.
So during your time of being a professor, I know you've published a lot of works. Is there a piece of work in which you're the most proud of, or some research in which, if a larger audience were to hear about it, one that you would like to describe or share?
Well, it would be almost incomprehensible if I did talk about the book that came from my PhD. It would be incomprehensible. The only thing I could say is that after 5 years, after I finally got it through my system, I published the book. And I looked back after even that. Oh my God, I did that. I really was just so, well thought out. And how did I go there with my brain? That. But what's interesting, more recent papers, just papers. Papers are, let's say, essays for academic journals, could be anything from 6 pages to 30 pages, depending on the journal, right?
Sure.
And a couple of studies I have done that targeted TV series of women, because I'm currently writing a book on women of power. Sure. And I tried to analyze how TV series and movies, the media, represented women of power, not who necessarily were in a position of power, but who were an influencer, or who let's say a fixer in,
could you give me
in
an
Washington,
example?
DC. Scandal. Kerry Washington was a fixer, right? She was a lawyer, a fixer. And how her language was, and what happened to her when she would become fearful because she was being targeted, and how, there was this whole difficulty with the father who was who was a good man, supposed to then turned bad, and then the mother who was an agent, and all of that. And she became how her language changed. That's fascinating too.
And how did her specifically, if you're just accounting that specific character, what did you notice? What were those observations?
Well, there's this expression of you attacked to defend yourself. When you're being painted into a corner and someone is saying or criticizing you or bringing you to task, they're saying, oh, you were the one who, and you, the idea in language, if you want to not be combative, but retort, come back with something, is you come back with the same statement into the same measure. If the person telling you, if it's a journalist and they're telling you about something that you had done, which was unlawful, all right, or something that was criminal, then you come back with something that the journalist has written that was that didn't hit the mark, or it's tit for tat, really.
Understood. Yeah, psychological play in that. Yeah.
Yes, actually, exactly. But there's also the more delicate social linguistic analysis that I love, which is really fascinating, is the not superficial, but the delicacy of understanding what are these pronouns, what pronouns are being used here. And usually, even just by studying the pronouns, you can see whether the person is distancing themselves from you, if they're including you, if they're, talking about others. And when you have a corpus, we call that a corpus, our body of analysis, the larger it is, let's say the more number of episodes you would analyze, the more you understand the trends. You can see the trends across all of the episodes, and it comes out as a strategy. And here too, unless you see it with your eyes and you can pinpoint it with graphs. I'm getting the words out. I'm a linguist. Graphs. Through graphs.
We love it.
With graphs, and you can see the graphs, and you can see where, the number of the times that we was never used when it should have been used, and they have there's a preponderance of the use of they when talking about a certain group, like the Al-Qaeda group, or the left-wing softies or something, so it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. Yeah.
Have you explored consumerism and propaganda, and how much does language and linguistics play into the theories that can be consumerism or propaganda or that?
Well, I putting it in a percentage, I have to say it's 100%. When you say consumerism is linked to marketing in some way.
Correct.
Always advertising, and advertising is about getting the proper language on the billboard, on the message, on that tweet, on, getting it so who receives it understands a certain thing. And that's 100% language. Yeah. And I'm getting excited.
Yeah, no, I am too. Oh, this is so cool.
And what's really interesting, and what I learned early on, is that you can't just study what's on the page or in the mouth or in the transcript. You have to look at what's not there. Why didn't they use this? And why did they use that? And that's really illuminating. That's really illuminating.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I wanted to become a better linguist, what would you recommend are the most effective steps to doing that?
Oh, just listen, you know, listening, analyzing, reading, and comparative reading. For example,
Mm.
if you, well, just let's say, what's an issue today? The issue is Novax. Is that how you say it in
Right.
English? No, right, right.
Yeah,
All right. So
the vaccine issue.
yeah, the vaccine issue. You can even do it online. You can get access to journals online, to papers online, and you can see. Say there was an incident in Florida or something, someone died because of some reason, okay? Then you take a look at that incident as reported in different journals
Right.
and you see the language that they use.
Oh,
That is a direct way.
it's so interesting you bring that up right now because specifically, are you aware of ivermectin? Ivermectin is a parasitic drug that we
Ah,
use to help, the stomach and other parasite-based
yes,
diseases.
yes.
However, there's a lot of correlations between ivermectin having a very positive effect for fighting off COVID in place of the
Ah,
vaccination. So there's one camp of scientists right now, backed by Brett
interesting.
Weinstein, that are
Oh,
pushing for ivermectin and this idea of it being looked at on a larger scale for efficacy over the long term comparative to the
yeah.
mRNA vaccinations that we're seeing
Hmm.
right now with COVID. And the way I'm seeing language between both sides, because it's crazy, it's creating such a dissent between scientists that there's a website that anytime an article from one side is posted, it retorques it. And then anytime something's posted on this side, it
Yeah, yeah,
retorques it
yeah,
on this
yeah.
side. And it's so fascinating to see how they use linguistics between the same data points
See, yeah,
to
yeah.
micromanage their message. It's so fascinating. And then it becomes a point of there's so many sources now. How do I interpret the language to really understand what is
Yeah.
the truth here when there is dissonance and emotion is now being backed behind
Okay,
the audio?
there's, you know, you said a really big word here, truth, and mathematics doesn't even have a truth of its own.
Mm,
There's always a perspective. You can do with numbers so many things that you can do with language as well,
truly.
and we have to really try to. And I think that this is the big problem with the division in
Mm,
all the world over, is that everybody thinks that there is a truth, that my truth is more than your truth, is better than your truth, and all I can say is, look, I've chosen my poison, period. You do whatever
right.
you want. And the issue here is, as you were talking, I'm thinking, okay, you're talking about websites, but of course these drugs, these substances have been studied in some way, and they were written about in journals. But then I thought, and I said to myself before I opened my mouth, those journals are manipulated. Those journals have a hierarchy. Those
Right.
journals are politicized as well.
Mhm.
Some papers don't get published, and others do. And so, where is that truth? It's always shifting, and I think that even that is an interesting thing, because
Mm.
anyone who goes after the truth is an idiot.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I said it. I'm not denying it, because
Sure.
if you think there is a truth, you shouldn't
You're
vote.
chasing your tail. You're a dog.
Yeah.
You're chasing your tail.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Because of course I'm going to believe certain things. There are articles,
Mm.
right? I have a news feed. The first thing I do when I turn over, I wipe my eyes, open my phone, and I have the feed. And of course, I have in my phone articles that I like to read. If there are articles, I'm not going to read the articles I don't want to read. I don't want to hear about that. I don't, and I'm saying that
Truly.
clearly because I don't like their arguments.
Mm. Truly, yeah. That's so
And
interesting. It's
yeah,
crazy too. I really sympathize with. I was listening to some of your content, and you talked about the reason you even went by Claudia, and that was you wanted to separate and distinguish your higher education self from the version of you that's doing your creation of your YouTube channel and all that. And I
right.
thought it was so fascinating your interplay on higher education. Is that something? Is the higher education system in Rome and Italy similar to that of how it is here in America?
All
And
right.
what were your quandaries with the higher education system, and
Okay.
have they
So
shifted?
let's say that any institution,
Mm,
the military, universities, hospitals, the government, there is a hierarchy, and in some of these institutions, it's more functional, and it's more functional in the military,
mm,
because you have to obey and you have to do certain things. In the and I'm likening this to hierarchical systems in universities. It's funny because in the United States, you get the impression that, oh, we're all on the same level,
Right.
But you do feel the seniority. It's not openly played, but when somebody is senior, and you definitely know when you are not senior.
Truly.
And the thing is that I can say it could be different. Yes, it could be. There is a patriarchal tendency to promote. There is all in the entire world, anywhere you go, But the thing is that, where do I stop fighting? Well, I really don't give a damn if I'm going to be promoted or not in the end. I just want to be happy,
Yeah, you're not worried about
that's
tenure.
The thing. Yeah, I have tenure. That's the thing.
That's
I do
beautiful.
I've got tenure. I've had tenure, and I'm going to quit. You can believe that. I'm going to quit because I can't take it anymore. But some people think that they have more tenure than the others. And so the power wielded is I don't know, it's tiring to talk about that. It's really tiring. And the funny thing is that when I mentioned about women in the book I was writing, I mentioned women of power, people who don't have the influence of being president or vice president, but they are so powerful that people follow them. In my environment, I was one of them. I brought in so many students because of the topic that I teach, the discipline, and people always came to me for questions, answers, theses, all of that. So I was having my share of responsibility, but and that was not looked upon very kindly. And so there was, when I started stepping back, they changed the way things were organized. And I was happy because it took away a lot of paperwork from me. But still, I was tenured. So, okay, I'll just step back. Until my boss one day came to me. We were at a faculty meeting. She says, I saw you. And I said, what do you mean you saw me? She said, oh, I saw you online. I said, you're kidding. She said, yeah. She says, you should tell the students because it's a great way for them to learn English.
Oh, smart.
It's just, I at one point you say, forget it. I started it with a name change so my students wouldn't find me, but then I thought, oh, throw caution to the winds. That's
so
enough.
Now is that something like when you have to do 2 truths and a lie with a new class of students is like, oh, I run a YouTube channel. Is that something you share? Or?
No, well, no, but it has, creeped through the grapevine, and the one student called me up and she had to, she asked for intervention because there was someone who passed, and, and it just, the word gets around. Yeah. Word gets around. Yeah.
Sure. Do you notice, I guess something that I think I've noticed, do you feel that colleges and universities in America, are like chasing the endowments or are chasing the priorities of their finances
well, they have
over
to.
over the priorities of the academics?
Well, money means greater programming, and the greater problem. It's here too. There's the cat that's biting its tail, because without endowments, without support, it's very hard to do certain things.
Right.
The idea is to manage those funds, and being part of outreach is not typically what a professor in the United States does. They don't. Administrators do, and which is nice. This is nice. And in Italy, it's the same thing. There are offices that are meant to do outreach, but I think that there's never enough money for research. There's more money for science, hard sciences, the soft sciences, no. And that is just an imbalance.
Right.
I think. Yeah. And in Italy, especially, the doctors, physicians are a very strong lobby at the university level. Yeah.
Yeah. Being a doctor is like
medicine,
considered very high there.
Medicine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating. I feel like right now in America, there's a big push for computer science. I would say if you're anything in that sector, it's very, very highly regarded right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of money going around for that. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So what happens, Chad? What happens is that everyone who looks for funding pitches their programs with an information technology base. they have, and so that's the way they know that they can
That's
get
so
money.
difficult
That's at least
because,
that's the way
like,
it's happening here.
what if like the
Yes and
mission of a
no.
soft science would be much better if it didn't have that push towards the technology and it focused more towards something else, you know? Like there's a give and take that happens
Well,
there.
having good software programs, some, good hardware at the university makes me able to do my research much faster.
Mm. Do you think
It's
there will be a period in which humans are worse at linguistics than AI? Do you think we'll ever bridge a point like that in which humans are more entertained or more enthused, are more moved by AI created language rather than a
I think
human's?
that's happening already. I
Wow.
think that's happening. I have a
Oh,
son
interesting.
who works in artificial intelligence, and it's fascinating. It's
Mm,
fascinating, and I think it's an abstraction. I mean, it's an abstraction that it models behavior, and I think it's fascinating. But um, I'd be damned if I do, damned if I don't, how I answer, because it's already taken it's overcome the language human speaking like we're doing.
right,
But
right.
they will know, no matter how much money is out there, we'll still be doing these podcasts, Chad.
Yep, you know it. You know it. Really,
Isn't
because
it great? It's
it
great. It's
is.
great. It
When
is
think
absolutely
about it,
fantastic.
when do you have an opportunity for like
Yes.
90 minutes to
Yeah.
uninterrupted just enjoy
Yes. It's
dialogue
talking.
with a human?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And people that I know say, "Well, do you make money?" No, I don't make any money.
Yeah. No, I still have a job. I still work,
And
but
yeah, I still have to work, carving out the time. And it's so funny because I'm surprised at myself too.
mm,
But I mean, it's you learn so much, first
true.
of all, and it opens so many different avenues, and you come away with a different perspective many of the times, most of the times, I think.
Mm,
Yeah. And you surely know what you don't want to repeat.
truly,
If it's a
truly.
negative experience.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
With hypnotherapy, I want to explore that topic for a second.
Mm.
First,
Uh-huh.
could you explain to me what is hypnotherapy? And then from a biological or neurological standpoint, what is occurring? And then how did you get into it?
Okay. Um, well, first off, I got into it because of past life regression. I was
Mm,
exploring past lives, and it's one thing to be able to read into a person's what we call the Akashic records, which is this big library in the sky, another metaphor to get information about them. But it's another thing if one thing is if I tell the person about themselves. Another thing if the person themselves explores this journey under hypnosis, because they get their answers like that. They just
mm,
come out and they realize, oh my God, now I understand why I don't have a good relationship with my dad, for example, things like that. And I got into it because I was curious myself. And what it is, well, hypnosis is, we talk about hypnosis as being not the stage hypnosis where it's entertainment and things happen that are not always hypnotic in nature, but can be illusionistic in
mm,
nature. Hypnosis is a state where the therapist brings the person through a certain series of techniques that I can't go into now, but
sure.
explaining very clearly to the person, first of all, and it's a long session. You explain to them, it takes about a 45-minute session in explaining what is going to happen, what they will be feeling, and never to be worried because they will be conscious. They will know what is happening and they can come out whenever they want to from this hypnosis. And being the guide of bringing them, the key in hypnotic therapy is to understand which best technique will bring them to a place without frightening them, without um, without breaking down the process right in the middle of when you're doing it,
Mm,
and having them explore it as long as possible before they come out of hypnosis. And that is a challenge. That's why I love it so much, because for example, people have gone to past lives where they visit a time when they're about to die, choke, and it's
wow.
such a experience. It's such an extreme experience, and that's happened to me 4 times, and I remember it just as if it were yesterday. And you have to be very careful in bringing them back and talking about it, and then bringing what they may not want to go back into hypnosis. Usually it will go into a second session or a third session, but I find that a maximum of 3 sessions has them come out, and the average is 2 sessions of wanting for them to feel on their own, to feel feet as if they are understanding what has gone through, having their own answers. It's if you ever have the chance, and if you ever know a good hypnotherapist, or you can have someone refer you to someone, I would try it if I were you.
Wow.
If you have questions about, I don't know, a lot of people, it happens that a lot of people think that they were not the natural child of the parents, and they believe that they were adopted, and they would like to know, because there's just too many things that make them think that they don't belong to that family. That's an example.
Wow.
There are a lot of, for example, a woman that I worked with has a fear of driving. She can't drive. She's afraid of driving. And, there too, there's a way of working around that through other different, tragedies. Sometimes it's, well, obviously, if they're going to a past life, there are lives where cars did not exist.
Sure.
But in that case, this woman had drowned. And it was being in a situation of non-control, of not being able to control where they were moving, because during the swimming, you move. It's a way of moving, and connecting the dots is the easiest part, really. But managing the situation with the client is very delicate, very, very delicate. Yeah.
It's so fascinating you bring that up, because there's only one thing ever in my life that I've always ever remembered that was a like weird body fixation to activity correlation, and that was driving on a bridge or near like a water side. I specifically when I was younger, my chest would get really heavy, and it would become extremely hard to breathe. Just when passing by.
You were driving yourself?
No. Either while I was driving myself or while I was in the passenger
I see.
seat.
Yeah,
And
this
it's
is
crazy
one
because
case.
I got over that now in college, but it was all through high school too.
But did
It would
you
always happen.
did you have dreams of certain dreams that could make you think about?
Yes, I've had a few occurrences where I felt like I was asleep, and then I woke up because I was either
drowning.
I was drowning, or I was or falling, like that, like that sensation of like falling into nothingness, and then you wake up and you're like racing your heart. I've had a few occurrences like that, but the biggest thing I think for me with dreaming and the production of dimethyltryptamine that I get so annoyed about is when I was younger, starting at the age of 14, I consumed cannabis. Now it's something that we legally have here in Illinois. But since about 15 through now, there's, I would say, of 365 days of the year, there is probably a good 95% of those that I do not dream, or I have no recollection of dreaming.
I see.
And then there's like a couple times where I have very good dreams.
Very specific dreams.
And I do understand the psychology of the rimming, and that the consumption of the cannabis can hinder your ability to go into REM sleep, so then you have to catch up. But then there is those sometimes where I do, and the dreams are extremely vivid when they come through. Yeah, it's fascinating, and that's something I wish I could dream more. Do you dream often? Is dreaming something that comes more naturally because you're a medium?
It comes. Well, there are periods, like you're saying, there are periods where I don't remember the dreams. There are periods when I do. And I have dreams often, quite often. And what I do is I have, I use my notebooks and things like that. I write them always. I write them down when they are particularly articulated, detailed, and when there are symbols that are so strong. And it's eye-opening, because it's the only thing we really have that works while we're not aware, when we're not awake, and that is able to tell us so much. Sometimes, I divide dreams. I'm not a dream specialist, but many dreams are all right. Let's say that Carl Jung, right? He talks about dreams, and his perspective is that all of the pieces of things, of people that we see in dreams are our projection, parts of us. If you dream about a child, it's you that you have to take care of, or things like that. There are also dreams that are actually the playing out of your past life. something that has occurred in your past life.
Mm.
And there was a third, and I can't remember what it is, what I wanted to say. Oh, there is the dream where you want to, where the fear that you cannot, something that you're fearful of during the day, you play out in your dream. Okay. That's something that your conscious mind cannot deal with. And it's hard to say exactly what that dream means, but with these three, I pretty much cover what happens to my nights. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Sure. I wanted to go into, I just had this, oh, it was just on the tip of my tongue. Shoot, I just lost it.
See, you do it too.
Yeah, I
At least
do.
at least like a corner kick. I came up with the third one. So I wonder how long I'm going to time you now.
I don't have that thought, but I do remember this thought. Does being bilingual have any play on your interpretation of linguistics? And what is that play, if it does?
Well, let's say that I got into linguistics because I'm bilingual, and I also use French a lot, French and Spanish passively into English. And but let's say that being bilingual gives you an openness to your mind. Your mind opens. I mean, I studied Russian, and I love Russian. I just love Russian because it just, when I'm in a really bad mood, when I have difficulty, when I'm so obsessed with something, I'll take out the Russian lessons and I just, have a vacation. And it's an opening. That's how I feel other languages are. And but of course, if you learn a language at a certain age, let's say you have a political conscious, you have a political mind, you live by yourself, and at the age of, say, 18, you left your home, and from 18 to present time, you must be older than 18. Come on, tell me that you are.
I am. Okay. I'm actually 22.
Okay. But at least for those 4 years, you're living on your own, but that means you have to do the food shopping. You have to maintain a budget. You have to put, something coming in, something going out. You have to work out what economics means.
Right.
And you also have to, in some way, get yourself prepped for voting if you have to vote. So you become politically aware. And that is where your language of political awareness starts. If you start now to learn Spanish, for example, you're not going to have that language in Spanish until you go live in Spain and you have to vote there or something. So you're going to have a whole food language or a different kind of social language. And so I had my taxes language, my area of paying taxes in it. It was once in Italian, once in English, and and my political language was very, very Italian, and then I had it from English. So it goes back and forth. The words change so much. What is the latest? What was the latest that was said during the elections? Something being clotted out, or I can't remember now. It will come to me. It's on the tip of my tongue. Sure. It was something the right, let's say the Republicans said about the left wing. I can't remember. Gone.
Sure.
It's
no problem. No, that happens. I actually do remember the thought I had earlier. Which that
was not even 5 minutes. That's good.
Right. Okay, good. It was on spirituality. I wanted to, when you mentioned dreams and symbols and that, and reincarnation, you vividly said, right. Which made me think about Hinduism and Buddhism. I wanted to ask, what is your current spirituality and how does that play into your mediumship?
Okay. Let's say that today, I can only tell you today how I feel. Sure. If I work with past life regression, obviously I believe that there is a series of lives, that our soul does not, dissipate, and I'll have another. I mean, if I die right now, I know that I'll see you somewhere else, Chad. I know that I can come around. I look forward to that
meeting as well.
And I'll tell you what happened out there. And so I do believe that, I believe that there is a strong sense. I do believe also what's interesting, and that people don't talk about, that since our soul is created All right, say I have my soul is 58 lifetimes ago. Yours may be 23, could be 90, could be, a certain number. During all those different lifetimes, there are occurrences, there are decisions that you make, there are that influence your soul's the health of your soul and all that next to you. I believe that as well, and brought forth to today. If today you have recurring events,
Mhm.
an example could be you um, you meet a partner. It lasts. It's very intense, extremely intense. It only gets to the third month. After 3 months, it's just an extreme breakup, and it ends. And you tend to be the one who leaves the partner, but then out of the blue, sometimes they leave you and you are floored. Okay, so there is this pattern, and you have to recognize it as a pattern. And that happens on the basis, according to me, of what had happened in your past lives. That's why I'm so interested in past life regression. So my form of spirituality, I work with a lot of Indians. I work with a lot of people from all over the world that have different religious beliefs. So let's say that I need to use a language. Sometimes I say Lord God, it is certain, what is the higher power for you
Right.
is it means this for you, and again, of course, I'm couching it in languages, and I'm saying, it is, language is just not sufficient to explain that. But my form of spirituality is that, like I say, I did come from the Catholic Church. I was baptized. I'm not practicing. I never, I mean, I lost it when I knew I couldn't be an altar boy. I thought that was it. I'm out. And, but I was fascinated by getting a copy of the Bible and listening to Bible in a Year podcast. It's
Sure.
another plug with this interesting Father Mike, and he makes it come alive. And in these stories and allegories that are so bloody, horrible, full of horrible things. But I like to read that. I like to see the stories, and I guess I just like stories and story writing. A lot of it is based on things that are so ancient, But having said that, I think that narratives are our spirituality. The narrative. There's a school of thought of narratology that has oftentimes in many countries supplanted psychology. If you can get people to narrate about themselves, and much like we're doing in a way, it's therapeutic. And once you find a storyline and you get the plot and subplots and rearrange it and show the person the way they have foregrounded something and the way how they've put something in the background, it tells them a lot about who they are and what they find as being important for them. I think language has, I hate to say it over and over and over again, but it seems that's what comes up. And spirituality, it has much to do with how you extend yourself for a purpose. Oh, sure, we have to pay our bills, but is there a part of us that, like you and I are doing now, when we do it just for the love of communicating, that is a form of spirituality for me. That is a form of communion for the time that we're together, and we come apart because you're giving me something that's enriches me in so many ways, and I can't doubt that. And when I go back and listen to this, I will say, oh my God, you really had a great conversation, and those questions I didn't expect. Oh God. And who
Sure.
is that God?
Truly, it's a big
Yeah.
question. I love that interpretation of spirituality, because I tend to allow my emotional landscape. Like I find that idea too of storytelling in writers. Like when I
Mhm.
when I can read writing and it's really good, I get crazy goosebumps. And to me,
Yes.
that is spiritual. And it's funny because when I was younger, I've never really thought about this till exactly now when you shared this idea. I wasn't spiritual really. My family never really made me have to go to church or anything, and it was
Mhm.
something I wanted to stem away from, but I allowed music to my
Yes.
spirituality. And
Oh,
I've
now there
never
you
I've
go.
never thought about accepting that something I enjoy or something that I evolve my life into and being so heavily consumed by could be what is your spirituality. That's
Oh
super
God.
new for me. That's
But
super unique.
music is sound, it's language, but it's harmony. And the interesting thing is that, it's a shame that not everyone understands that, not everyone is attuned, just to use the language, is attuned to the actual sounds of the universe, because there are sounds out there. And it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. Have you ever played an instrument?
Yeah. So I've since about fourth grade, I've played clarinet, and then I switched to saxophone,
Nice.
piano, and singing.
Nice. Ah, that's nice. So you are a singer. You do use your
I
voice.
do. My
Ah.
minor is in vocal performance and operatic
Ooh.
singing.
Ah, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. I'm a voice coach. I
Are you?
work with this Feldenkrais method. Yeah, the voice and movement. I have a postgrad course coming up, and
Very
it's
nice.
geared toward people who use their voice, like actors, singers, interpreters,
Oh,
dubbers, things like that.
best class freshman year that got me into actually reading and writing was my language, and we had a dialect training course.
Oh, I love that too. I did it
Oh,
too. I
it's
loved it.
so good.
It's
Where we
so
explore
good.
every language. You explore
Yeah,
the
with a
books of how,
dialect.
yes, with the little thick books where you can explore and break down how words are said and everything. Like
Mhm.
that was so much fun. And I got to explore like Gullah Geechee, which is a
Yeah.
form of or in New Orleans of
Mhm.
African people's descent and their language. And it's so cool to think that just everywhere we exist, and even I'm sure you even see that too in Italy. Like if you go to like Orvieto versus
Of
Rome, like
course.
there's
Right,
such
right.
changes in the
You said
dialect and
that
culture.
so well,
Oh,
Orivieta.
oh,
Wow.
thank you. My dream, this is a topic we haven't touched yet, which we could touch it now. Italy. My heart, everything in my body tells me I should be in Italy. I need to visit Italy. I need to have a home in Italy. I should just die
Have you
in
ever
Italy.
gone? Have you ever gone?
I've yet to been. I want to go to Orvieto.
Did,
I want to go to Lake
why
Como
Orvieto? Why
because the
Orvieto?
history, because it was like one of the only
Yeah, well,
towns during World War II that
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
get
yeah.
demolished because of treaties,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that's so fascinating. And I want to meet, well, my dream is really Croatia. Croatia is where
Well,
since I was a young
it's
boy,
very close.
it is all in the Mediterranean there. I
Yeah,
want to visit it all, but I want to get to meet the people, and I want to have
yeah,
podcasts with
yeah.
locals. And
Oh,
I
the
don't know how
little
hard that will
digital.
be, but
Yeah,
it'd
no.
be
Well,
so
you did
cool.
just bring your little digital.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking, and just go
recorder.
backpacking and just explore
Yeah,
and meet. What's your
yeah. It
favorite
is.
part of
It is.
Italy?
Well, um, I have to say, I haven't seen all of it, but my family, I spent so many years in Florence and in Tuscany, and I went purposely to Tuscany because that is a place where, to this day, favors study and mindfulness. I'll
Oh,
use that horrible word, but meditation.
sure.
It is. I like Tuscany. I live in Rome, and this is gorgeous. The weather is beautiful. We're by the sea,
Right.
and it's the it. This is, I really do like this, but you go up north, and there are certain characteristics, as there are all over the world. Really, the northern part of the countries are different, and the south are different as well. But the food, I mean, the food.
I want to try
I've
gnocchi.
gnocchi. There's a Sardinia. I've been all over in Sardinia, and I love Sardinia. Sardinia has a very high, one of some they have ultra centenarians. They live a long time in Sardinia. That you would really like. That you would really, really like.
That sounds so
Um,
good.
I think, if you have to go anywhere, you have to have time. Well, you have to have the mindset where I'm going for this time, 3 weeks, 1 month, whatever, because then next year I'm going for another week or another month. You have to do it on a regular basis, I think.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much. Have you been to Lucca at all or explored
Oh
any?
God, I used to work. Oh, I know Luca like the back of my do you say the pockets, or do you have the back of my
Back of your
hand? You said
hand.
the palm of my hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luca, I used to work in Luca for a long time as an interpreter. And it's one of my favorite friends will be coming back to Luca to live. It is a real little jewel of a place. It's a small city. You get around. It's good. The food is good. It's a very nice area, really nice area, because then there are the mountain slopes nearby. It's nice.
Sure.
Close to the sea.
Are
Yeah.
there, I know this is probably a stupid Westerner question, but are there pines all over Rome?
Well, yeah, they look like lollipop trees. Yeah.
Do you know
That was,
about the Pines of Rome, the classical work of music?
wait, say that again. I
Uh, the
lost you. Say it
the
again.
Pines of
Did I
Rome.
know?
The Pines of Rome. It's a classical work of music.
No, I don't.
Oh,
No.
yeah, that was a classical musician joke I just made. There's a beautiful
Oh,
symphony
you did?
called, yeah, it's called the Pines of Rome. And I haven't been to Rome, but apparently there's beautiful pines all over Rome, pine trees.
There is. And when you land in Rome at the Leonardo da Vinci airport, Fiumicino, when you come into the city, you start seeing these pines. They look, and I remember I was 13 when I came back for the first time, and they look like lollipop trees. I thought they were all lollipops. They were tall and round, and it's so characteristic. Yeah, the vegetation is really nice here. But you put that together with the food and the relaxation and the attitude. There's an attitude. It's changed, of course, after COVID. It's unfortunate, but still there is that you have to sit down to eat your meal.
I love the extended dinners where you have
Yeah.
meals over 3 hours and multiple courses. Like that is, oh, it's
well, not everybody does that, but yeah, no, but it's very civil, especially if you're communicating with somebody, you enjoy it,
What are some of the biggest differences you notice and observations between Americans and Italians?
Well, you don't have wine readily at the table in the United States. You don't.
Yeah.
Not in all parts of. You have to order that, okay? But if you get milk someplace, every time when I learned that traveling in the United States and they would offer me milk on the table, I almost vomited because I thought, how could you eat that? How could you drink that? And that's for breakfast.
Sure.
But that's one thing. The eating habits are different, but of course you can get now whatever you want anywhere. The habits, it's a social difference. The social space is different in the United States compared to European countries. Especially now with the COVID situation, but there, and the way you socialize. Many people have acquaintances on the job, and that's the way they make their friends. Typically, you don't go to the corner bar. There's a lot of drinking. It's not social drinking. There's alcoholism. I mean, you go there and people just go, past the line of social drinking, and that becomes heavy. It just becomes heavy. There's no more conversation there.
Yeah.
That is a difference. But and then there's this big divide of vax, no vax, if I'm saying that right.
That's a big issue in Italy as well.
It is still a big issue, but there's more tolerance, I see. There is more tolerance. And but I don't want to go there with that discussion. It does, we're in the heart of it. So, we've just, today is the 5th. Is that the 5th? Yeah, today's the 5th. Tomorrow is the first day when we will be required to travel with this green pass in our bags on us to go anywhere. If I want to go to a restaurant,
proves a vaccination or whatever.
Right. If I want to have a drink at the bar, I have to keep standing. If I don't have my green card, if I want to go in, I'll have to go with that. If I go to the gym, I have to have that. So that's starting tomorrow, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, I choose my poison. But I like to travel. I like to move, and I can't do that. I have a son in Germany, and I want to go see them. And another one in another place. So it's. You do what you have to do, right? I mean, you have to do. And if people want to inject chips into me and study what I'm doing, I'm okay with that, because negative energy comes through microchips are sent to you.
Yeah.
They are, and that is negative energy. It's part of negative energy. They need to be cleared as well. I'm giving you the secrets to my trade here.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate the intimacy and inside scoop. It's really it's exciting. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even think we've explored everything with mediums and mediumship. So like how does okay, I know we are getting to the end of the time here. So I have a few questions I want to get into, but
Sure.
how does like creation theory in the world play into mediumship?
Okay, now I had a very small bout with creation theory because I worked for a group in an international group that were, okay, get this, that they have conferences, all international conferences. And so I organized the conference team, the interpreting team. One time, well, not one time, several times they came to Italy. And on one occasion, a friend of mine who's a physicist came to the conference and started saying, you know, I'm an experimental physicist and we measure the beginning of time. We measure the bio, you know, the beginning. And every time we get there, it seems to shift. You know, it always shifts. And I know this was not the question that you asked, but I can't, as a medium, I can't wrap my brain around the notion of that school of thought. It's something that I worked for, I translated their words. That's enough for me, you know. Wonderful people, fantastic people. It's just not, I couldn't go there with my brain, you know, or even reason about it.
Sure.
And sometimes I didn't understand even what they were saying because it just seemed so foreign to me, you know. What is your take? I mean, can you, I don't know, shine some light on that? Not in relation to mediumship, of course, but
not really, but in relation to the spawn and the impetus of everything that exists, you know, I'm not too sure. I want to look deeply into the science because I haven't looked enough into the science of the Big Bang and how all of that cosmic creation starts. But for me, the idea that lately I've been really exploring a lot the simulation theory. I really like that idea. I think there's something fascinating about the concept that maybe there was a single event that created a simulation that allows for all of this to occur in the way it does. And then I even had a guest on last week and we explored the idea of God being the actual head of the simulation and like that that people and religion has maybe been a way to explore and understand a simulation theory without even realizing that it could have potentially been a simulation theory. So I think I'm in a similar camp to you where like every time I go to explore that topic, there's either a new theory that comes up or I can't really pinpoint a strong enough statistical evidence to verify that this is exactly it. So I'm still luminescing on the idea of it. I'm very unaware of what really started all of this. But do I believe, I don't know if I necessarily, I do think there is some sort of mix between understandable sciences and unexplainable phenomenons that just came together and everything exists as we know it exists.
You know, it's difficult because I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to say, Chad, don't worry about it because it's going to change.
Right.
It's not going to be called that. It'll be called something else. Don't worry about it. It's not worth understanding. Wait till something else comes.
Sure.
You know.
So do you fear death? Are you excited for death because there's a potential of other lives?
Now, it is, you know, I'm only flesh and blood, right?
Sure.
I'm only flesh and blood. And of course, I work with clients and I therapeutically, especially when they're in a situation where their spouse is dying and, you know, trying to tell someone that they need to embrace it is quite difficult for me. Because I know as if it were yesterday, about 20 years ago, I went for a breast analysis or examination where there was a mass. They found a mass. And that night I went home, then they had to take a syringe and, you know, see what it was. That night I was crying to my mother. You know, I was calling my mother, who was no longer around, but, you know, I was scared, you know, I was really scared. And of course it wasn't anything, but when you're there, then you reason about it. You know, I can't say, I said, well, I have to say though, I'm such a happy person because I've done so many things that I could, sign on the dotted line. I can go today. That's okay. Just, I'll go. And I would be happy. Um, and I often think, how would I like myself, me on a dying bed with my children next to me? What would I say to them? And I'd have to say, don't worry, just be happy. I'm all right. I know I'm okay. And that's what I'm obviously going to do. But and I hope it's after 100 years, then I'll be able to say it, because if I got this far, I'm sure I'll make it there.
Lifespan's changing all the time. I mean, if we look even in the 70s, it was like your lifespan average, they were saying, was like your 60s, early 60s. And now if we look at it, it's 80s, 90s. I can't imagine.
There is, of course you have to understand, I'm a person who doesn't have pain. I have pain nowhere. I never have pain.
Wow.
ever. Knock on wood.
Do you do yoga?
If I have pain, that's a dirty word. That's a 4-letter word for me. I'm sorry to all of you yoga fans out there. I hate yoga.
No, that's
I'm the kind of person, I'm a runner. I was a long distance runner. I swim. Now the pool's closed, but that's for me. But there are things. Well, I work with Feldenkrais, and Feldenkrais is a certain method that I don't think we can talk about now. But the interesting part is that when you, all right, the marathon in Rome, right? I was running the marathon in Rome, and I'm the kind of runner, you just start and you're slow. You always get there. I never stop. Okay. On the finish line, it was the first time I did. I think I did it 3 or 4 times. When I was getting near the finish line, everybody's so tired. And so you band together and you give yourself courage, the men, the women, whoever it is. And I remember distinctly the first time, time I did that, this man was saying, "Oh, I have such pain. Oh my God, I have such pain in my calf. Oh, my such pain." And I felt so bad. And so I said, "Wait, come on, I'll help you. Come on, I'll help you. Come on, I'll help you." When we got about 100 meters from the finish line, he says, "No, go, come on, get your time in, go." And he says, "I'll be okay. I won't fall." And I felt so bad. This man who probably started with a super sprint and didn't know how to gauge his, I don't know what it was. I felt so bad. The idea is that if you do have pain, you should never have pain, whether you're young or old. And if you do, there's a problem, obviously, but there is a problem not only in that moment, it's something that goes way back. So if you start now at your age, say you're 22, and you've got a toe is hurting, a toe. What's a toe? I've got 10. Why should I worry about one, Right. But that toe has symbolic meaning. And it will tell you that toe is lining up with a certain area of your body, and the symbolic meaning can be very valuable to you if you understand what it's about, And there are a lot of those things that you don't have to be Einstein to know, because pain is objective. Well, it is subjective, but when you feel, I have a very low tolerance for pain. That's why I have no tattoos, because I can't bear the thought of going and getting something, pinning in my body. I can't think of that. Sure. But I do believe that your health can be accompanied with your intelligence if you're aware of your body, where exactly that's coming from. Why is my voice like this today? It's surely just a voice, but it's from way down yonder. It's coming from something. It's coming from an emotion. It's coming from something. And if you're able to do that all the time, that you can come up with me with the 100-year-old group, and that'll be in the club.
Fantastic.
Yeah Live so to be 100.
There's one question that I ask every single guest I have on, and that is, if you were young, if you're listening to this and you're old, and maybe you're going through a midlife crisis, maybe you're just exploring what you want your life to be, what is one piece of advice that you have for that person that's listening from the life experience that you've had thus far?
Who's talking? The young one giving the advice to the old one, or
no,
the old one giving to the young
advice to anyone? So some advice that could be applicable whether you're young or old.
Well, be very sensitive to your own reactions, and not the reactions of others to you. Be very aware of how you feel, when you feel, who you feel it with, what does it cause, and then explore that. Because when you explore that, you'll understand it, all you need to know about yourself. And, if somebody gives me the heebie jeebies and I feel sick, the answer is right there. You don't have to go to a psychiatrist. That's get rid of the guy, or, get rid of that person. Don't go near that person,
Sure.
You have to know, you have to read your reactions. You have to be able to read your senses, be sensitive as you can, being aware. I don't want to use that word mindful. That goes with yoga, but being very aware of where your bones are, where the sound is coming from. You that work with the voice, especially, that there's some, how to carry it, how to move it, and that will give you a product that's far superior than without knowing where it came from or where it comes from. And of course, obviously, we're humans and we can't know everything, but I can safely say that you can know about yourself, if not 100%, 99%, and you could start there. If you start with yourself, it's easier to understand other people, and be more tolerant,
I love that. Yeah, I think that being aware is such a good last note to end us off here. And I want to thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time
Oh,
today
thank you.
and sharing
Thank
your
you for this
wisdom. This has
beautiful
been
conversation.
yes, it's been so enjoyable. I've been very
Oh, me too.
observant. The
For me too.
one thing that I've taken away heavily, I would say, was
Mhm.
just your ability to be cognitively aware, so much like a scientist, of every aspect of your life, from how your
Oh, how
body's feeling
interesting
to
that you
things
say
that you're
that you picked that
visualizing
up.
around you. But
Mhm.
it's really beautiful sentiment to leave
Oh,
us off with.
nice.
And
Yeah,
I want to give you an
great.
opportunity before we finish up here. For anyone who's listening, plug anything that you want to plug right now,
Oh,
platform wise.
I'm not a plugger, but I have a couple of websites. My YouTube channel is www.christelle with two L's, Martinet, two T's and an E.com. And my author website is my name, www.claudiamonacelli.com. I'll be coming out with a book, but it's too early to give the title yet.
Okay.
So I do have the title, but I won't. That'll be another time.
Yeah, we'll keep that one in the loop. I'll let people know
Yeah.
too once that comes
Yeah.
out.
Thank you, Chad. Thanks a
Cool.
lot.
Of course. Thank you.